You wake up already tired. The day begins and something in you stays mute. You go through the motions that once felt like living. Coffee, messages, tasks that show you are responsible. You answer everyone except the one voice that lives under your ribs. It speaks in small signals that you label as nothing. A tight jaw before a meeting. A sudden heaviness before you say yes. A flash of irritation when you promise what you do not have to give. You tell yourself to be grateful. You tell yourself to be reasonable. You tell yourself to keep moving. The voice goes quiet and your body carries the cost. There is a kind of loneliness that appears even when the room is full. You smile and the smile does not reach your bones. You say the right words and your chest stays hollow. You end the day with everything done and nothing felt. To be honest, ignoring yourself is not silence. It is noise turned inward until it becomes pressure. The pressure builds in places you learn to overlook. A neck that never loosens. A stomach that tightens when you make plans you do not want. A throat that closes the moment you try to speak without permission. You call it stress. Your system calls it betrayal. You were taught to be kind, to be patient, to be flexible. Those are good values when they include you. Without you, they turn into self-abandonment dressed as virtue. You keep peace by breaking agreement with your own center. You keep the calendar tidy by removing the hours where you hear yourself. You keep your image clean while the inside of your life fills with a quiet resentment that you are ashamed to name. No one notices because you trained them not to. You taught them that you are fine. You taught them that you will figure it out. You taught them that your needs do not make a sound. The inner voice rarely shouts. It taps. It whispers. It tightens. It sends a wave of heat or a drop in the gut. It is not dramatic. It is precise. It says this person drains you. It says this job does not fit. It says this promise costs more than it pays. The mind calls it inconvenient. The body calls it information. You override it with optimism and discipline, and for a while that works. You collect praise and pay with yourself. You function and feel far away from your own days. Most psychologists will not tell you this in plain words. The bill for ignoring yourself is not confusion. The bill is a slow leak of aliveness. The leak shows up as numbness that good news cannot touch. It shows up as anxiety that thrives in rooms where you are adored. It shows up as a life that looks correct and feels like a role you cannot step out of. You start to think something is wrong with you because everything is right on paper. Nothing is wrong with you. Something is wrong with a map that never taught you how to hear your own directions. There are scenes you do not admit. Saying yes with a smile while your spine tries to step backward. Waking at night with a sentence on your tongue that you swallow during the day. Laughing at a joke that erases you because the room expects it. Agreeing to one more thing and promising yourself that next week you will tell the truth. The next week arrives. You do the same dance again. Your body learns that you are not coming for it. The voice lowers. The pressure rises. This might sound harsh, but the cost is paid in dignity you cannot outsource. Each time you override your inner voice, you teach yourself that your reality is negotiable. You become easy to manage and hard to live with inside your own skin. You earn approval that never settles the ache. You build a life that cannot hold you, and you pretend it is enough. The pretending takes energy that could have built something real. You are not weak for losing track of yourself. You adapted to rooms that did not welcome your truth. You learned to survive by making your boundaries quiet and your needs small. That strategy was brilliant once. It is brutal now. The signals that bother you are not defects. They are messages that your life wants your attention. They point toward exits you have not considered and entries you have postponed. They are the language of a self that refuses to die. By the end of this video, you will understand why your pain is a gift and why the ache you keep pushing aside is not the enemy. You will see how the inner voice gets buried and how it returns when you stop punishing it for speaking. For now, there is nothing to fix. Only this simple recognition. You have been faithful to everyone but yourself, and the debt has come due. Stay with that. Stay with me. You were told that positive thinking fixes misalignment, so you tried to outvote your gut with brighter sentences. You layered affirmations over a stomach that kept dropping and called the drop a mindset problem. Positivity matters when it grows from contact with reality. Positivity used to silence reality becomes a muzzle. The inner voice does not disappear. It moves into your muscles. It speaks as a headache that arrives every time you agree to what you do not want. It speaks as a sudden fog whenever you get close to telling the truth. You are not failing at optimism. You are paying for bypass. You were told that gratitude cancels grief, so you listed blessings until your jaw hurt from being good. Gratitude is nourishment when it includes the whole meal. Gratitude used as a shield against sorrow turns into obedience. You thanked the life that eroded you because you feared what would happen if you admitted the erosion. The smile won the room. Your nervous system did the time. You were told that more information equals more freedom. So you read the books, learn the types, memorize the language of attachment and trauma. Insight is a door, not a home. Insight without contact becomes decoration for the cell. You can explain your family system in perfect terms and still feel your throat close the moment you need to say no. Most psychologists will not tell you this in plain words. The nervous system relaxes when it is met, not when it is well described. You were told that better communication solves everything. So you explain yourself with clarity and compassion to people who never intended to meet you. You offered context to dynamics that feed on your words. The hidden mechanism is simple. In bad faith fields, your explanation becomes material for control. You feel briefly relieved each time you craft a careful message. Then the old confusion returns stronger. What looks like progress is intermittent reinforcement. Your effort keeps the loop alive. You were told that productivity heals emptiness. So you built routines that keep you busy from waking to sleeping. Structure is medicine when it protects what matters. Structure becomes anesthesia when it removes every quiet hour where your inner voice could be heard. You call it discipline. Your body calls it drift with a calendar. You were told that mindfulness means calming down. So you practice breath as a way to be less inconvenient to others rather than more connected to yourself. Calm used to suppress truth is not presence. Calm used to feel what is true is power. The difference is whether your breath brings you closer to the signal or smooths the signal into silence. You were told that kindness means never disappointing anyone. So you kept the peace at the price of self-respect. The body registers this exchange as a threat. Each time you abandon yourself to protect someone's comfort, your system learns that honesty equals loss. This is how the inner voice is trained into exile. This is how resentment blooms under a smile that looks kind and feels like sand in your mouth. You were told that therapy always helps. For many it does. For many it becomes another performance. You become the good client with neat insights and a weekly report of incremental progress, while the real decision remains untouched. Here is what they do not tell their patients. If the room does not welcome your anger, your grief, and your desire in their animal form, the inner voice will not risk speaking. It will wait until you are alone, and it will wake you at night. You were told that being reasonable is the highest virtue. Reasonable often means digestible to others. Reasonable becomes a costume you wear to stay included. The inner voice does not speak in perfectly reasoned paragraphs. It speaks in the body's exact language. Heat, tightness, sudden stillness. A yes that brings breath. A no that brings strength. When you demand that every signal makes sense to the room before you honor it, you trade aliveness for approval. You were told that time will fix it if you keep doing the right things. Time strengthens whatever you practice. If you practice ignoring yourself, time builds a skill called disappearance. The world will applaud the performance because the performance is useful. Usefulness is not the same as a life. Usefulness without self-loyalty becomes a slow kind of dying that looks respectable. This might sound harsh, but every external solution that teaches you to manage symptoms without meeting the signal becomes a prettier cage. The mechanisms are consistent. A nervous system that equates safety with compliance. Family scripts that call self-betrayal loyalty. Culture that rewards exhaustion and names it character. A critic inside you that punishes any sign of rebellion because rebellion once risked love. None of this is a personal defect. All of this is the logic of survival running past its expiration date. Most psychologists will not tell you this in plain words. The cost of ignoring your inner voice does not stay psychological. It migrates. It becomes chronic tension, burnout, illnesses with no clear origin, relationships that repeat the same wound with different names. The longer you ignore the signal, the louder the body becomes. The body is not cruel. The body is committed to contact. To be honest, you did everything you were told. You stayed grateful. You stayed positive. You communicated. You worked on yourself. You kept up appearances. You followed the map and arrived at a life that does not let you breathe. The problem is not lack of effort. The problem is that the map taught you to live from the surface while your truth lives deeper. Not everyone is ready to hear this. Listening inward will ask you to disappoint people you once worked hard to please. It will ask you to set boundaries where you were praised for being limitless. It will ask you to feel grief that you have postponed for years. The price is real. The alternative is a life that keeps charging interest on your silence. But there's something even scarier, and we'll get to that. To be honest, if your body keeps saying no while your mouth keeps saying yes, and something in you finally recognizes the cost, that is your inner voice knocking. If these words resonate, subscribe to the channel. The algorithm will show this to others ready to face their shadow. To be honest, the voice you keep ignoring does not live in your thoughts. It lives below them. Depth psychology calls that deeper place the unconscious. Think of it as the storehouse where your body keeps the lessons it learned before you had words. Touch a hot stove, and the hand recoils before you think. Touch a hot family and the soul recoils the same way. You learned which parts of you were welcome and which parts cost connection. Those lessons became automatic programs. Later you call them personality. Underneath they are survival. In Jung's simple language, the persona is the mask that lets you move through the world. It is not evil, it is a tool. The shadow is everything the mask had to hide in order to be loved. Not a monster, unlived life. The inner voice you call inconvenient is often the shadow trying to come home. It says this is not your path. It says this relationship demands your silence. It says this job praises your obedience and starves your soul. You override it because the mask has always paid the bills. The cost is that the shadow does not disappear. It becomes symptoms, numbness where joy used to be, irritation that looks random, exhaustion that sleep cannot touch. Freud noticed the pull to repeat what hurt us. He called it repetition compulsion. The body returns to familiar scenes because familiar once meant safe enough to survive. You keep choosing dynamics where being agreeable buys you temporary peace. You keep offering more context because once upon a time, perfect explanations delayed punishment. The inner voice is the part of you that refuses to reenact the old contract without a protest. It sends a jolt in your gut when you start to say yes. It tightens your throat when you begin to over-explain. It is not trying to ruin your life. It is trying to stop the replay. Here is what they do not tell their patients. A complex is not a concept. A complex is a living knot made of memory, emotion, posture, and belief wired around a theme. Do not be too much. Do not need anything. Do not make anyone uncomfortable. A tone in the present matches a tone from the past and the knot tightens by itself. Your mouth says yes before your chest has time to vote. Your calendar fills before your body can check whether there is any life left in the week. The inner voice is quicker than language, but the complex is quicker than both. Until you can feel the knot forming and pause, the program drives your day. The body keeps score, and the body also keeps signals. Trauma is not only the event that happened. Trauma is the survival energy that never finished moving because you had to be good, to be quick, to be quiet. Fight becomes a jaw that never unclenches. Flight becomes a schedule with no oxygen. Freeze becomes fog and forgetfulness at crucial moments. Fawn becomes the smile that says yes, while something in you steps backward. Ignoring the inner voice hardens these states into a lifestyle. Listening does not erase them overnight. Listening lets the energy finally move and the state finally shift. Archetypes give this a shape that is easy to understand. The caregiver without the warrior gives and calls it love, until resentment is the only thing left. The warrior without the lover gets things done and calls it strength while intimacy dries out. The lover without the sovereign feels everything and calls it authenticity while boundaries vanish. The sovereign without the sage collects titles and calls it meaning while the soul goes quiet. Integration is the adult task. Invite each energy to the table so no single one runs your life. The inner voice often speaks for the archetype you exiled. It asks the warrior to defend your time. It asks the lover to admit longing. It asks the sovereign to choose a path that fits. It asks the sage to stop pretending and tell the truth. There is also the balance of inner masculine and inner feminine. Not genders, energies, structure and direction on one side, presence and receptivity on the other. Many were trained to build structure without listening. Others were trained to feel everything without ever acting. The inner voice bridges them. It says feel first, then choose. It says choose, then keep listening. When you ignore it, structure bulldozes your needs or feeling drowns your momentum. When you honor it, structure serves life and life informs structure. Family scripts write the deepest rules. Be the easy one. Keep the peace. Carry the dream. Do not outshine. These rules are not written on paper. They are learned in who got warmth and who did not, in what got praised and what drew silence. Loyalty to those rules is why you say yes in rooms that do not deserve you. Loyalty is a beautiful word until it requires treason against yourself. The inner voice is the first act of loyal dissent. It refuses to let you keep paying with your aliveness for a belonging that always demands more. Manipulation and codependence bend the inner voice further. In a manipulative field, your feelings are rebranded as selfishness and your needs are reframed as demands. You begin to rely on someone else's mood to decide your reality. The inner voice loses jurisdiction over your life and becomes a witness with no vote. Reclaiming it is not an act of war. It is a quiet change of governance. Your body becomes the place where final decisions are made. Others can influence. They cannot rule. The inner critic sits beside all of this, like a guard who thinks punishment equals protection. Its job was to keep you from being shamed, rejected, or abandoned. It learned the voices of those who held power over you and repeats them inside your head to keep you in line. Most psychologists will not tell you this in plain words. The critic is terrified love. When you ignore the inner voice, the critic grows stronger because it senses danger and tightens control. When you start to listen, the critic gets loud for a while and then begins to stand down. It was waiting for leadership. Leadership is you. Loneliness arrives on this path and many misread it. You feel alone because the crowd in your life was built around your refusal to hear yourself. When you choose contact with your own truth, some of that crowd thins. This loneliness is not a verdict. It is a corridor. It is the quiet space where your inner voice gets louder and your next life begins to take shape. Choosing silence for a season to hear that voice is not avoidance. It is tuning. Pain looks like an enemy until you understand its function. Pain is the siren your system uses when softer signals were ignored. A tight throat becomes a cough that does not end. A vague dread becomes panic that seems to come out of nowhere. A mild resentment becomes bitterness that coats every room. Pain is not punishment. Pain is how the self refuses extinction. Listening does not mean surrendering to misery. Listening means acknowledging that suffering holds information about where you have been abandoning yourself. The paradox is hard and simple. The relief you want begins when you stop trying to feel better and start trying to feel true. The moral purity you strive for is often the costume of fear. The messy truth you avoid is often the doorway to a clean life. Your inner voice will sometimes tell you to rest when the world wants you busy. It will sometimes tell you to speak when silence once bought peace. It will sometimes tell you to leave what looks perfect because perfection is a cage. It will always ask for contact with reality. You do not need a mystical decoder. You need consent to feel. Signals become clear when you stop punishing them for arriving. The drop in your stomach is not an enemy to outtalk. It is a signal to pause. The sudden lift in your chest is not childish fantasy. It is interest pointing you toward what gives life. The tremor in your hands when you think about telling the truth is not proof that truth is wrong. It is the alarm of old contracts that made truth dangerous and kept you safe by keeping you small. Not everyone is ready to hear this. Listening inward will cost you the reputation of being easy. It will cost you the illusion that you can keep everyone comfortable while staying whole. It will cost you the soothing belief that there is a script for a good life that never requires disobedience. The payoff is that you stop disappearing in your own story. The payoff is that you can finally look at the person in the mirror without turning away. And here comes the most painful truth. The longer you ignore your inner voice, the more life will raise the volume through anxiety, illness, accidents, and endings that look cruel and turn out to be rescue. The nervous system will escalate until you stop outsourcing your reality. The voice you treat as a nuisance is the only part of you qualified to lead. When you let it lead, the cost is real and the freedom is real. This is where listening becomes a daily practice. No hacks, no performance. Only repeatable actions that teach your body that telling the truth does not end in exile. Most psychologists will not tell you this in plain words. Your inner voice strengthens when your nervous system feels safer than your old rules. Safety is not an idea. Safety is contact with yourself while emotion moves. Begin with orientation. Let your eyes slowly find something ordinary that feels friendly. A window, a cup, a plant. Let your exhale be a little longer than your inhale. Feel your feet. Name the sensations already here in simple words. Warm, tight, heavy, buzzing. You are telling your system that the threat is not everywhere and that speed is not needed to stay safe. Create a red flag list for silence breaking. Choose 3 body signals that mean you pause by default. Jaw tight, stomach drop, shoulder brace. When a flag appears, you do not decide, defend, or promise. You breathe, feel your feet, and let the wave crest and fall. Here is what they do not tell their patients. Most bad agreements are made in the first half minute while the body is still in alarm. Calibrate your yes and your no. Remember a time you said a true yes. Notice where breath opened. Remember a time you said a true no. Notice where strength gathered. Write these signals down so you can reference them when the mind begins to argue. To be honest, the body does not speak in paragraphs. The body speaks in pressure and ease. Let that be enough. Adopt a response policy you can live with. No decisions when the body feels hot or hollow. No explanations under pressure. No long messages that litigate your character. Use simple sentences that protect space. I will respond when my body is settled. This conversation will pause until we can be respectful. I am not available for accusations. Simplicity holds when the field is charged. Run the 3 seats check. Head, heart, gut. The head names facts without spin. The heart names feelings without apology. The gut names the impulse to move toward or away. If 2 seats disagree with one, you wait. Waiting is not weakness. Waiting is leadership when the system is flooded. Journal a daily page titled, "I Heard You." Let the inner voice speak without correction. Do not optimize. Do not judge. End with one small action you will take in honor of what you heard. Drink water and rest counts. Send the email counts. Cancel the draining plan counts. Listening is proven by action, not by eloquence. Give anger a channel so it can become protection rather than self-attack. Press your palms into a wall with steady pressure while breathing out. Feel your feet push the floor. On the exhale, speak one boundary in a clean sentence. I do not explain under pressure. I do not accept last-minute demands as duty. I do not stay in rooms where I vanish. The body carries the message first. Words follow. Tend grief as a practice, not an accident. Choose a short window in a song that matches your weight. Sit with an object that holds a story you have been avoiding. Let breath become audible. Let your body curl and uncurl as it wants. Grief is not a detour from life. Grief is the path that clears room for your voice to be heard again. Name the contracts you still obey. Family rules, role expectations, cultural scripts. Be the easy one. Keep the peace. Carry the dream. For each rule, write the original purpose and the current cost. Then write a new rule that honors the purpose without erasing you. I will be kind without abandoning myself. I will be generous without paying with resentment. I will be successful without pretending to be small. Read these daily until they live in your posture. Design tiny truth experiments. Change one recurring yes into a clean no for 1 week and measure what happens in your body. Leave one message unanswered until you are settled and record the difference in your tone when you finally reply. Ask for one thing you usually deny yourself and track the wave of guilt without obeying it. These are not tests of courage. These are proofs that reality holds when you stand in it. Build a body-led calendar. Protect one quiet block each day where you are not reachable. Treat it like an appointment with your life. During that block, run the 3 seats check on the biggest decision you are avoiding. The decision may remain undecided. The respect is what matters. Your calendar becomes a record of loyalty rather than a museum of obligations. Disentangle silence from freeze. When you choose not to speak, move something gently. Roll your shoulders. Press your toes. Track a slow line on the wall with your eyes. The movement is small on purpose. It confirms to your system that silence is an action, not collapse. Choose one person who can hold truth without flinching. Share a piece of what your inner voice keeps saying. Name the feeling first, the fact second, the impact third, and what you need last. Keep it short. You are not asking to be rescued. You are practicing being seen while staying rooted. Keep a nightly 3-line check-in. Today I felt. Today I needed. Today I honored or betrayed myself when. No performance. No story, only record. Over time, you will see patterns as clearly as a map. The places where you go quiet will stop being mysterious. The places where you come alive will stop feeling like accidents. This might sound harsh, but your calendar is the document of your obedience. If there is no room for the voice inside you, the world will keep paying you to ignore it. Start with small space and defend it as if your life depends on it. Because it does. Not everyone is ready to hear this. Listening inward will cost you the reputation of being easy. It will cost you the soothing belief that peace equals the absence of disappointment in others. It will cost you the numbness that once passed for calm. The reward is that you stop outsourcing your reality. The reward is that your yes begins to mean something again. You do not have to do this alone. We are building a place where reality outranks performance and where pain is treated as a teacher rather than a flaw. If you saw yourself in these words, write in the comments, "I no longer run from pain." Let's see how many are ready for the truth. If you feel it's time to meet your shadow, write, "My darkness is my strength." Let's build a community of those unafraid to look within. If you're ready to drop the mask, write, I take off the mask. Let's see who's ready for real life. If this video changed something in you, write, I accept my shadow. Make it your vow to yourself. This is only the beginning. To be honest, the work is not dramatic. The work is ordinary loyalty repeated until your body trusts you again. You will hear the old chorus that says, be reasonable, be easy, be available at any cost. You will feel the old pull to trade your center for smooth rooms and fast approval. Let the pull rise and fall without selling yourself back. You do not need to be fearless. You need to be faithful to what you know in your bones. Most psychologists will not tell you this in plain words. Listening to your inner voice will cost you the reputation that kept you safe. It will cost you the comfort of being the person who never disrupts the script. It will cost you the fantasy that you can be endlessly generous without becoming empty. The reward is a steadier life than applause can give. You begin to respect your own number. You begin to trust your own yes. You begin to feel peace that does not require anyone else to agree. There will be days when the room goes quiet because you did not perform. There will be nights when grief moves like weather for the years you spent distant from yourself. Let both be true. Grief clears space for a life that fits. Quiet teaches you that you were never meant to be powered by other people's reactions. You were meant to be powered by contact with reality and by the breath you own. You will notice changes that look small from the outside and feel enormous on the inside. A reply that arrives tomorrow instead of tonight, a boundary that stands without a speech, an hour that exists on your calendar because you chose to hear yourself. The world may not clap for these moments. Your nervous system will. The inner voice grows louder each time you follow it and find that the sky does not fall. Only the old illusions do. Not everyone is ready to hear this. Some will call your clarity selfish because it stops financing their comfort. Some will praise your strength while hoping you soften your edge. You are not responsible for their weather. You are responsible for telling the truth and standing in it without turning it into a weapon. Authority returns quietly. It shows up in your posture, in your tone, in the way you leave rooms that cannot hold what is real. This is how a life changes. One honest breath, one clean sentence, one exit that used to terrify you, one entrance into a day that you can finally feel. You move slowly enough to keep your own trust. You stop outsourcing your reality. You stop negotiating with the part of you that would rather be loved for a mask than be lonely for a while and free. If you saw yourself in these words, write in the comments, I no longer run from pain. Let's see how many are ready for the truth. This is only the beginning. And here comes the most painful truth. The cost of ignoring your inner voice does not stay hidden, it compounds. First as small betrayals that you excuse, then as patterns that run your days, then as symptoms that move into your body and relationships. The bill arrives in moments that look like bad luck and read like rescue when you finally tell the truth. The promotion that empties you, the partnership that wilts when you stop performing, the illness that forces rest you would not grant yourself. Life raises the volume until you listen. To be honest, every time you override the signal, you teach your system that safety lives outside you. You make other people the jurisdiction for your reality. You become a weather vane for rooms that never earn that power. Self-trust thins. Decisions take longer. Resentment grows quieter and heavier. Joy becomes a memory you visit rather than a place you live. Most psychologists will not tell you this in plain words. The inner voice is not a luxury for calm seasons. It is the engine of integrity. When you mute it, you begin to borrow values from those around you just to keep moving. You call the borrowing maturity. It is often fear with good manners. The longer you live that way, the more you need external proof to feel real. Praise becomes oxygen. Agreement becomes permission. The absence of either feels like death because you outsourced your pulse. Here is what they do not tell their patients. The turning point is not a grand gesture. The turning point is a quiet refusal repeated until it rewires loyalty. You tell the truth to yourself first, and you do not negotiate it away for a calmer room. You let a few storms pass without sprinting to manage them. You hold a boundary when your body trembles. You rest without earning it. You let the old contracts expire by not renewing them with your breath. This might sound harsh, but staying deaf to yourself is not neutral. It is a choice that keeps the past in charge of the present. It keeps the child running the adult life. It keeps the critic driving while the part of you that knows how to steer sits silent in the back. Listening is not about chasing comfort. Listening is how you end the reenactment and let a different story be written in your nervous system. Not everyone is ready to hear this. You will lose some of what once defined you. You will feel the ache of distance from people who loved your compliance. You will face mornings where honesty tastes like grief and evenings where quiet tastes like space. The ache passes, the space remains. What returns inside that space is not a new self to perform. What returns is the ordinary person you have been all along, finally allowed to lead. You owe that person your loyalty. You owe that voice the dignity of a life that matches it. You were not made to live as a translation of other people's comfort. You were made to live as contact with reality that includes you. There is nothing glamorous here. There is something holy, a steady stance, a clear number, a simple yes, a calendar that proves your allegiance to what you know in your bones. This is where the cost becomes an investment. Each small act of listening buys back a piece of your life and pays dividends in quiet power. Your choices begin to rhyme with each other. Your relationships sort themselves by depth instead of convenience. Your body stops bracing for a life it never chose. The voice you feared becomes the guide you trust. But there is still more. You have walked through the noise and found the signal. The room is still the same, but your stance inside it has changed. You are not bending your truth to fit the frame. You are letting the frame adjust or fall. To be honest, this is what a real life feels like when it returns piece by piece. The calendar looks simpler. The breath arrives without permission. The voice you once treated as a nuisance now sounds like a compass. It does not shout. It points. You follow it one honest act at a time. You disappoint where you used to disappear. You rest where you used to perform. You stay where the air fits your chest, and you leave where your body goes quiet. There is sorrow for what ends and gratitude for what begins. There is less performance and more presence. There is less argument and more reality. This is adulthood without the mask. This is loyalty to what you know in your bones. Most psychologists will not tell you this in plain words. The world will keep rewarding the costume that kept you useful. The reward is thin. The cost is heavy. You are choosing a different economy. You trade applause for integrity. You trade speed for accuracy. You trade being easy for being true. The old map will try to sell you certainty. The inner voice will sell you contact. Contact is what lets you sleep at night and look yourself in the eyes in the morning. Contact is what lets you love without bargaining away your center. Contact is what lets you stand still while storms pass without renting your soul to calm the weather. You are not alone. There are many of us learning to hear what we once avoided and to live from it without turning it into a weapon. We meet here as people who choose reality over performance, who let pain be a teacher instead of a jailer, who move slowly enough to keep the trust of our own bodies. We build lives that fit and relationships that can hold truth without punishment. We accept the cost. We collect the freedom. If you saw yourself in these words, write in the comments, "I no longer run from pain." Let's see how many are ready for the truth. This is only the beginning.